I'm going to talk about just some general characteristics of the digestive system. The digestive system consists of a tube, which is called the alimentary canal, or also known as the gastrointestinal or GI tract. In addition, you're going to have accessory organs, which are going to include things such as your teeth, your tongue, salivary glands, liver, pancreas, and gallbladder. The tube is where the food goes through and the waste comes out. The accessory organs are going to be involved in chemical digestion as well as in mechanical digestion. The alimentary canal is going to begin at the mouth and will end at the opening called the anus. It will consist of the oral cavity, the pharynx, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, and finally, the anal canal. There are 4 distinct layers in the alimentary canal wall. We're going to begin with the innermost layer and work our way outward. These layers will be called the mucosa, the submucosa, the muscularis externa, and the serosa. So let's begin with the mucosa, the innermost layer. The mucosa consists of 3 sublayers. An epithelium that lines the lumen. For most of the alimentary canal, the epithelium will be simple columnar epithelium with goblet cells. Moving outward, the next sublayer of the mucosa is the lamina propria, which is loose connective tissue. The third sublayer of the mucosa is the muscularis mucosa, consisting of 2 thin lines of smooth muscles. The second main layer, the submucosa, will be irregular connective tissue with blood and lymphatic vessels as well as submucosal glands. Associated with this layer is the submucosal nerve plexus, which is part of the enteric nervous system. This plexus regulates secretions and blood flow to the alimentary canal. As we continue to move outward, the third main layer will be the muscularis externa, consisting of muscles. For most of the alimentary canal, the muscularis externa is arranged into 2 layers, an inner circular layer and an outer longitudinal layer. Sandwiched in between those 2 layers is the myenteric nerve plexus, also part of the enteric nervous system. This plexus innervates or regulates the muscles of the muscularis externa. The outermost layer is called the serosa. This is also known as the visceral peritoneum and consists of simple squamous epithelium and loose connective tissue. For organs that are retroperitoneal, there is an additional layer called the adventitia. The adventitia consists of dense, irregular connective tissue and helps support and anchor the digestive organs. Specializations occur within different sections of the alimentary canal. Let's look at the epithelium. Remember that most of the epithelium in the alimentary canal is simple columnar epithelium with goblet cells. However, there are differences here. When you're closer to an opening, you're going to have a different type of epithelium. In the oral cavity, the oral pharynx, the esophagus, and the anal canal, the epithelium is converted into stratified squamous epithelium for this added protection. The pharynx has modifications within the muscularis externa. The 2 layers of muscles are flipped. The inner layer is a longitudinal layer and the outer layer is a circular layer. The circular layer of muscles is arranged into 3 constrictor muscles: the superior, middle, and inferior constrictor muscles. These muscles are involved in deglutition. The esophagus, which begins at the upper esophageal sphincter and ends at the cardiac sphincter, which is at the entrance into the stomach, also has modifications within the muscularis externa. The upper third of the muscularis externa in the esophagus consists of skeletal muscle, the middle third is a combination of skeletal and smooth muscle, and the lower third is smooth muscle. There are several modifications in the stomach. We're just going to look at a few. When the stomach is empty, the mucosa and the submucosa form folds called rugae. These rugae allow the stomach to expand when food enters the stomach. There is an additional layer of muscle in the muscularis externa. This additional layer is called the oblique layer. It is the inner layer, the circular layer is the middle layer, and the longitudinal layer makes up the outer layer. These 3 layers are important in the churning and grinding that occurs in the stomach to convert the bolus into chyme. The small intestine begins at the pyloric sphincter and ends at the ileocecal valve. There are 3 regions to the small intestine. The short, proximal, or first region called the duodenum, it receives chyme from the stomach. The middle region, the jejunum, and the distal region, the ileum. The mucosa and the submucosa make permanent folds called circular folds. Within the mucosa, you have finger-like projections called villi, and the plasma membranes of the absorptive or simple columnar cells form finger-like projections called microvilli. All 3 of these structures are used to increase the surface area in the small intestine for absorption. The modification of the large intestine is with the muscularis externa. The muscularis externa is found in 3 longitudinal layers, and these are called the tenui coli. The muscle tone of the tenui coli pull the colon into haustra, or pockets,